John, are you ready? Or
I'm ready, yeah.
you ready?
Okay. The section on manure is another really interesting section. Is how do we deal with this component? One is most states are now requiring that we do something with it, either in liquid form or in dry form. So in liquid form, we're going to have to employ the microbes in a aquatic environment to get rid of our solids, decompose the structural parts of it. There's a lot of creative ways to go about this. They're really quite expensive. And they don't work so well. But somebody makes a lot of money on them. And so it's good business for a bad alternative. The better alternative and the cheaper alternative is let's just use some microbes to do this. All right?
Let them do all the work.
Let these guys that have this wonderful pre-programming come in there and do this work night and day, 24/7, all year long. So the nice part about this is or drying. I'm losing a nutrient. In fact, if there's any odors at all, it tells me that something is being volatilized as a gas, and I'm picking it up. All right? That's what pathogens do. All right? They're going to take your nitrogen, send it back up as ammonia. Phosphate is phosphine gas, sulfur, hydrogen goes back up as hydrogen sulfide. You lose your carbon, potassium, you lose your trace minerals. Okay? So, mineral stabilization is a big thing because once we have manure, it's past the chance of our animal using it. Okay, so we've got a commodity and we've got a resource. Now, I want to put it back in the best form for my soil, and I want to put it back in the best form for my plant. And so, how do I employ the right microorganisms to do that? Well, the process is I get rid of some salts. I need to get rid of my pathogens and toxic compounds. This is where these guys come from. In a manure pit, typically that fibrous material is your heavy material and it settles to the bottom. And as these compaction into these solid layers build up down here, we get a process of what we call anaerobic putrefaction, which means that I now have, and if you guys have opened up these solids in these bottoms, they stink to high heaven. They are horrible. Well, down here, what I have is I have pathogenic organisms taking my carbon material and it is putting it into very toxic forms. Okay? My pathogens don't digest or break things down well. It's not their job. But what they're doing is they're creating a lot of aldehydes, alcohols, and they're producing a lot of harsh acids. And all of these are very, very toxic to plants and other microorganisms. And so, typically, when you have a lot of this going on, you have a very dead environment now. And this just tends to get worse and deeper, and it's not a good situation. And so, what I'm doing is I'm creating a very toxic zone that what my next step is to move it into a field.
Which takes a ton of fuel, a lot of agitating, and you kind of end up getting disappointed because all you do is relocate those sandbars or sediment islands to a different portion of your lagoon or pit.
And we moved a whole lot of nasty things out into a soil that we're going to ask to help us
in a few months. And so, dealing with this material in a liquid form is, it gives us an opportunity to use some microbes to do a very wonderful job. And so, as we look at this, how do we retain our nitrogen? How do we retain our mineral content? Well, our pathogens are going to send them heavenward. Okay? Our good guys actually put it within their body. That's how they retain. They're going to actually multiply and take over the population of the lagoon or the pit. And they're going to go in and start reducing the odors. The higher their populations grow, the less minerals that I use. And that's when you notice the reduction in odor.
And it stabilizes those nutrients then inside those microbes' bodies.
It does. And this is how it works. Every microorganism, especially your bacteria, have a very high carbon to nitrogen ratio, or very low carbon to nitrogen ratio. So for every carbon, maybe they have 5, they have 1 nitrogen. But they also have a phosphate, they have a potassium, they have a sulfur on down the line. And so bacteria are the most nutrient-dense organisms on the planet. I want lots of beneficial organisms in this lagoon taking my resources and holding them in their body. Okay? Because they're not going out. The cool part is when I put them in the soil, I still have my nitrogen.
They stay put.
I still have my phosphate and my sulfur. Okay? Now, it's in an organic form, but I still have it. Okay? And this afternoon, we're going to go through the process of how you beat it back.
And once that's out there, Ken, what I've appreciated is what normally would take 3 to 4 months in the soil, I've already now pre-done that. So now I can plant my seed an hour after my last manure tank went out in that field. I do not get crop injury, no burning. And so the seed or the crop can use it day 1 instead of waiting that 3-4 months for that transition phase of breakdown to take place in the soil.
Do you think that has anything to do with the right biology helping you versus the pathogenic biology helping you?
Absolutely.
Oh, so they just saved you a little time, didn't they?
And a lot of money.
Time, okay. 3-4 months, a little money, crop loss. Now we're getting back to paying down our debt, having less stress, going fishing, buying Doug's wife and your right? Okay, so we're on the right track here. We're on the right track here, right? This is what biology does, is get things into the right balance so that I don't mess up my next system. Because if manure was to stay in the pit the rest of its life, why would we worry? But it goes back onto a field, back into another microbial community, back into an environment that the plant's going to take it up. Right? So is there a way that I can use the biology? Absolutely yes. Is I can turn around and I can reduce my solids, I can put in microbes that are going to be very, very aggressive against taking apart these long carbon chains that we didn't get accomplished in digestion. I can put them into a more liquefied form, and when it goes out into the field, I don't create a nasty level of toxicity. And this is very, very crucial. So the other cool part about the cultures that we use, right here, 50% of our anaerobic cultures have this really cool set of yields. They have to look really hard to find them. So when they get out from swimming in the water, they function as aerobes. Okay? They flip over, they're facultated, and they start using oxygen. And so, boom, I skip right onto the next environment, and I'm a beneficial guy out there doing, adding to the community, adding to the diversity, and I'm helping that process as well. So, not a bad idea, okay? What we've got here is we want to eliminate the odors, get rid of the gases, and we need to stop the poisons and the buildup, because that is going to have a very predictable domino effect on the balance of my soil biology, the nutrient uptake of my plant, and the toxicity level of my plant. All I have to do is have poisons come in, get taken up by the plant, cause it to get sick, and the plant calls in a whole bunch of insects. Now I got sprayed insecticide. Now I'm going to whack out more biology. So I start this downward spiral because when we go back to this original thing, and it doesn't matter if I'm talking about inputs into a lagoon or if we're talking about inputs into any system. Okay? If I put junk into my soil, I've got to deal with that junk. My biology's got to deal with that junk. The chemical reactions got to deal with that junk. My plants have got to deal with that junk. And the more junk we overload in the system, the unhealthier the occupant is. Okay? So, as we go through this process, these are the things that we need to be able to manage. And these microbes do a wonderful job at doing this. Okay? Suppression of pathogens. I can't even begin to tell you how many pathogens transfer from the manure into the field. We don't kill a lot of pathogens in the gut. If we don't kill the anaerobes in the manure system, whether it's dry or liquid, we simply relocate them into the field.
But I want to deal with those in the pit. And you talk about working that whole system prior to putting it into the field. Here's what it's done for my particular business. I don't know if you guys are forced to wash down, but I do not wash down, period. I haul 40 million gallons, I start my season, I finish it, then I wash down. That's the only time I wash down. But if I had to shut down to wash my equipment, like I told these integrators, I said, you can afford me, and I don't have enough time to do that. But that's a huge segment, especially with this PED scenario. Last year, I got one of my integrators called me and said, hey, we want this protocol washed down. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come there, explain to you why I don't have to. So we had Schwartz's, Mark Miller, their nutritionist, Steve McNutt, their top service manager, Darren Comfort, and I took 3 of Profit Coast guys with, David being one, and one of my other guys, and I had 5 of us there compared to their 3. Well, then they realized I was dead serious about what I was talking about. Well, after 2 hours, I don't do no washing down, period. But if they thought I was carrying pathogens, I would be washing down. But that's one of the huge, big advantages as a custom hauler that you guys could gain too, by not having to screw around washing. And you know, now these clients, they feel comfortable now if I'm on any of their sites. You know, normally, like say, you go to haul, and typically the community has to be notified on a lot of sites because it was putrid smell, when you were talking about the smell. Now, these guys don't even have to bother calling, because I always tell them, I go talk to the neighbors too, so I help that relationship scenario too, but I always tell the neighbors, if you don't see me hauling, you will not smell me. And that's true. You know, until they understand that, they don't really believe it. But once they're experiencing it, then it makes your job so much easier. And then business basically comes to you instead of you having to go to drum up business.
Well, it's all in the quality of the material that you handle. We have a direct say over how that quality is put together or created. And so if we just simply do nothing, I will promise you that the right anaerobes are not automatically there.
It just doesn't happen on its own.
It doesn't happen on its own. This is a management process. So once we put the right biology into that system, then we start to change the system. These microbes don't set up house where they say, okay, I tell you what, you pathogens on that side of the pond, good guys on this side of the pond. These guys come in and say, there's really no room for you guys here. So it's only a matter of time before we kill almost all of you. We put the rest of you in the still corner, and that's where you're going to stay. Because you don't do the proper function of a healthy system. And so our job here is to get the system back into balance. So our function is to get enough biology into the system so that it corrects itself. This is what we do with manure, is the mineral retention. And again, what we're doing, you have to look at this. Right? I have mineral NPK in my manure. You're going to get an analysis of that. But these factors right here, enzymes, antioxidants, growth regulators, my beneficial organisms are producing additional nutrient for plant uptake. You won't get that. You get the toxins and the poisons and the pathogens. You get all of these wonderful things from the beneficial microorganisms that are way beyond NPK, guys. They're way beyond your mineral content.
Wish we could get a measurement of those. And what I always tell my clients is, I said, okay, treat your manure in the raw number form and add a third to that. I says, you'll find you can get by on less gallons an acre and produce a bigger crop. And, you know, so they always, most of the clients deal with the numbers game. And some people are hung up on that, but I always tell them, you do the yield check, you do the yield test. You go out, I'll put down 3,000 gallons of bio-augmented manure, and you see if you can still produce a 200 bushel corn crop. So that's usually a way to convince them that there's nutrients more than what they had before.
This is the wonderful part about biology, is it gives you more back than just minerals. And there's no other way to get it, because it takes a living organism to create the enzymes that one solubilize the minerals, the next one put all of the enzymes, the nutrient transfer, the health components together. They don't naturally occur simply because we farm. It takes a microorganism to manage the minerals and add all of the extra value components to that process. These enzymes, these vitamins that are produced, these growth regulators, these hormones, are all a major bonus. And the better your biological system in your manure, the better you produce these add-on extras that your plant's going to need. And so these guys are setting up the environment for the next process. And so it's very, very crucial that we look at the potential of our biology. What can it really do for us? I mean, other than just take the smell away, what are we really doing out here? Okay? Reduce flies and mosquito in the population. Parasites feed off food sources that are available to them. Okay? We can break these down in the pits or in the lagoons. The pathogenic organisms simply don't have a food source. Right? Pathogenic fungi produce these mycotoxins. They're toxic to plants, to animals. The bacteria groups that we put in kill these pathogenic types. And I will tell you, unless you make a management effort to manage the pathogens, you will always have them. Your chemicals will not do this. You may get temporary relief, but you haven't managed them. If you want to control pathogens, you have to do it with beneficial microorganisms.
What is your impression of more than manure can? I mean, do you know enough about that to comment?
Well, yeah, more than manure is a synthetic product that is designed to be a pit additive with the expectation that it retains phosphate.
I call it smoke and mirrors.
The phosphate retention has been on the product that Simplot produced originally to do that. The phosphate retention was questionable at best. Some soils, farmers said, no phosphate retention whatsoever. Other soils may have been in a different chemical makeup. They said, seemed to work better. Okay? So there's mixed reviews on it. I'm not saying that it always fails or it always works. But what I'm telling you is at best, they claim the retention of one mineral. Well, how about the other ones? awfully expensive. They're more expensive than what we do. Our microbes are there designed to retain lots of minerals. There's more than manure or any of these other pit additives. Do they reduce pathogens? Do they reduce odors? And so, what are they actually setting up for the next stage where the manure goes back out? Okay? When you look down into them, is what's the use of the product? What is its perpetual function? And what am I getting back from what I put in? And so, I just look at it and say, guys have a profit. There's a lot of very clever products out there that work very marginally that make companies a whole lot of money that the farmer can't tell is worth anything or not.
And that's where most of the dissatisfaction has come in the industry, is because they've tried all these other products and have been so severely disappointed that they just lump them all into the same category. I had the Larry Christensen, the dad, Christensen Family Farms, he called me and asked me about more than manure. And I said, Larry, don't even go down that road. I said, you don't want to use that. He asked me if I was familiar with it. I said, absolutely, I know exactly what you're talking about. But I said, I didn't even test that one.
Well,
because I've seen it used in other pits.
And Avail was the product that they used in the soil. And it was marginal at best. Some guy said, hey, we're great. Some guy says, dead bust. Okay? I'm not going to argue with the guys. Okay? We've had farms that have used it, and it's been the exception rather than the rule that had anything good to say about it. Well, if it didn't work in the soil, why would its mode of action be that much better in a pit? And why would I select one mineral at the expense of all the minerals? Why would I select the balance in favor of toxicity? And so what I'm saying is when you look at what a product does, if we get into it, we analyze it, and we say, okay, what has the best potential to solve my problems? Okay, I think that's a better choice. And so it's not here that we're here to back down the products. What I'm trying to say is everything does something. Figure out what its potential is, learn to manage it right, and get the best value for your money.
And that's the way I look at it, Ken, because I always said to myself, okay, all these products have got some good. My brothers have used everything under the sun in their barns. And they do some good, but what I was always looking for is something that would do everything. Not just deal with odor, crusting, flies. I wanted something that took care of the sludge, the sediment, and the environment after I was applying it. Because all these other products, like in the sphere ball, I got neighbors trying those. And so I test stuff. Last year I had 4 companies come to me. 2 of them just give me product, 2 of them I paid for it. I said, yeah, I'll test it. They want some results back. Well, I got a site where I didn't haul the manure, the farmer did. So it was a neutral site. Didn't have no treatment in it before. Well, during the course of the summer, one of the other products looked pretty similar to Profit Rose. Done a nice job on the surface, the odor of the flies, crusting. But when it came time to haul, I says, okay, now will be the big test because the farmer's hauling his own manure. Well, it was night and day difference. And the farmer couldn't believe that it was going to be that much difference because on the surface it looked pretty close. But the telltale sign was the sludge and sediment that was left down below on them other products. So, you know, they do some good. You might not badmouth other products, but I can because I'm a farmer and I'm in that industry. So, yeah.
You know, this is the point. Is you know, people design things to do certain things. And if that's what you need, then I'm sure that something's out there for that. But we're trying to manage not just the manure system. We're trying to manage a nutrient system that supports the soil, that supports all organisms that depend on the soil. And we're trying to support environmental systems. Do I want high nitrates, high nitrogen content in my manure in a soluble form that leaches down some river, into some lake, into some bay? No, I don't. Okay, I lost my nutrients, I contaminated the environment. Okay, can I do something better with the management system that I have the opportunity to use to do it over? Absolutely. And you have to employ the microorganisms to do that, not a chemical synthetic additive that isn't broad spectrum in its function, and it isn't going to take care of the toxicity issues. They're not designed to do that. Guys, the reason that we have problems in agriculture today is because we have become accustomed to doing so many shortcuts that the balance systems are not intact. We have a shortcut for everything. We have a shortcut for wheat. We have a shortcut for nutrient deficiency. We have a shortcut for producing garbage. Okay?
Quick fix.
A quick fix all the time. And when every system fails, we come back in one more time with another Band-Aid and another patch, and we go, gosh darn, this triangle of chairs on the Titanic looks so cool. Oh, everybody's got to see this. Okay? While you're both thinking, you think they'd be better in a round circle? Or a diamond shape? Maybe this triangle. Okay.
But the band was still playing with
Maybe
it.
a really cool rectangle. You gotta work on that, all right? Knock yourself out. All I'm saying is there's a huge industry out there that keeps us pretty well distracted from very basic functions that are far cheaper, far more effective. Okay, all we gotta learn how to do is manage these guys, because we don't have complications that come from starting right and working from there. Okay? Again, this is our really cool process. Break up our organic matter. Make these minerals plant available. Okay? And get these down into a molecular size that our plants are going to be able to use, get the pH right, and get the stress out of our systems. Yes?
What does AEM stand for? It's effective microbes, isn't it?
Yes, a lot of people call it anaerobic efficient microbes. It's just a general name given to anaerobes.
Okay.
Efficient microbes, effective microbes, really cute microbes, but you need a microscope for that. Okay, part of the culture we use are non-sulfur bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria. In time, your legumes start to feel purple, and it's kind of cool.
Picture of health.
It really is. And these microbes are very aggressive at breaking down organic matter. Okay? And they do an incredible job. If I want solids taken off the bottom of my pit, I couldn't ask for a better microbe than these guys. Okay? Now, they're not going to go out there and wash apart your cars. They are going to take carbon apart like nothing else on the planet. Okay? So they're the right guys for the job. And they're going to turn around, and as they do this, they produce all of this good stuff. Okay? They purify, they oxidize. The nice thing about these pathogens, in the process of getting rid of all these toxins, they're giving us back oxygen. Okay? There's not a better system to use than this. Okay? Beneficial microorganisms. Restructure our particles, increase the moisture retention, they great breathability of our soils and our environments, less compaction, greater root health. These microbes are going to end up in the soil.
Keep working, breaking down the salt.
They got to keep going. Okay, they're going to regulate soil temperature. Jim and I were with the farmer yesterday, and he said, you know, we couldn't plant, we had to wait for warmer soils. Guess what? Your microbially healthy soils are going to be 8 to 10 degrees warmer 2 weeks earlier. And they will be better aerated, and they will be available for less compaction and improved planting. Now show me a synthetic that will do that. Okay, so if you want to have your soils in better shape for planting, you can fly over fields in the winter in an airplane. You can look down and you can see snow on one field and not on another field. You can see people who do minimal tillage or slot tillage that have live cultural microorganisms functioning in a certain zone up and down the field, and you'll see snow between the rows, and you'll see brown spots and swaths. Because the heat of microbes has melted the soil, kept it warm, melted the snow, kept the soil warm, and those spots tend to be the drains that take up the water and hold the water in the soil profile. Down here is where the roots go, it's where the biology is, and you have got way better water retention, you've got biological activity. You can see this from the air. You can tell a flat, dead field who's chemically whacked out and it's a junkie versus a biologically active field because it will be ready to rock and roll. Weeks earlier, the snow will be off a week quicker, it'll have better retention and be better structure. You won't have the runoff and the nonsense that goes on. You won't have the residue retention on top. It won't be there in the soil. You won't have the pathogen content. You know, there's not much better than that than hot. Maybe hot bread with butter. I don't know. It doesn't get much better. But these guys set this system up. Okay?
And even that frost protection, it gives your plants a little more sugar content, which then helps buffer it from like an early frost.
Lots of things. The nutrient transfer, if you get this right, the nutrient transfer is just incredible. Okay, it helps the plants, helps the biology, the whole system's better. So this is what our lagoons look like. This isn't an air lagoon. This is micro. These are solids that are moving up from the bottom. And this is on a 2,500 head dairy that I treated in Idaho. And there's just these huge eruptions all day long going out. And this is what they look like. This up here, you can see these solids coming up and floating away.
You mean I don't need a $2,000 boat to stir that up?
200,000.
200,000?
No, you don't need a $200,000 pipeline system. Not that we're trying to push it in the system. We're going to have a sprinkler system. Okay? These biologies are designed to do this. And you can see these chunks that are once were at the bottom are now coming up. I mean, they're foaming and sudsing, and these microbes are going to work. This is really a cool process. So you can see this over and over and over. You start to notice this purple color in here. I had a couple of slides that I don't think I got in here. That these ponds were so darn purple. I mean, it is like, what happened?
I had one client call me and say, what the world, why is this purple? I said, well, that's the picture of optimum health.
It is.
And he didn't realize that.
It's that functional biology that has spread dense enough through that lagoon that those are the guys retaining your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, your pathogens, and you've got digestion and recycling. That's what you want to see. Now the other cool part is solids composting. All right? So I'm not doing it in a liquid, I'm going to do it aerobically with piles. Okay? And this is a really cool process. We use the aerobes to go in and restructure these manure piles. It's going to come out with lots of carbon material. We've got straw, we've got bedding, we've got manure. That is not the best form to put out in the field. Okay? It's got to get broken down and processed either in a pile, in a compost pile here, or the soil is going to have to deal with it. And I introduce all of the nasty stuff that could be in this material out in my field, and my field slowly deals with that stuff. The better process is to put it into piles and break it down. Okay? Let the aerobic microbes go in here, our bacteria, our fungi, our major decomposers, go in here and start working on reducing that structure, taking the carbohydrates that are in big chains into little tiny chains, reducing everything, producing vitamins and the antibiotics and the antioxidants and the enzymes that are going to be a huge benefit to go back in the soil. Yes, sir?
If you're feeding all the good stuff through the feed, balanced stuff and all that, do you still have the bad stuff in that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Well, when you have manure, simply because of the digestive tract, you automatically inherit pathogens. Your E. coli is going to be in every food that comes out. Okay? And if I pile it up, I tend to accelerate the proliferation of pathogens. Okay? Because again, all of my good decomposition biology is not naturally there. I have to put it in. But with manure, because we don't get it out of the corrals very timely, we don't get it into a management system sometimes very quickly, we end up with some pathogens. We end up with a lot of weed seed. Maybe we don't want to reintroduce to the field. So by heating up the piles for more than 135 degrees for 4 days continuous time, we'll kill every weed seed in that pile. Okay? And what we're doing is we take and grow our own organisms, our aerobic biology, inoculate the piles, so we are physically changing the dominant culture of biology. Okay? You've got to remember, manure is very bacterially dominated. Bacteria do not digest fiber, not their food source. You got to have fungi. So we're going to put in a very fungally dominated compost, and we're going to break this stuff down, and we're going to get a balance of good biology into these piles so that we restructure it, we get rid of the pathogens, we retain the nutrients. We visited some compost piles that were so stinky, lots of effort. My boots stunk for 2 weeks after I got home. That's nasty stuff. And they're selling it. And I'm going, I poor the guy who's buying this. This is nasty stuff. When you have that kind of stench, you have the worst putrefaction and the worst pathogens. And you can change all that simply by altering the biology. Again, these are flags that says something's not right here. Right? And it's the improper use of microorganisms that create those environments. When we use the right biology, you don't get that. This compost, we took this compost and we could not germinate one species or cultivar seed in it ever. We tried for 3 months. Not one seed would germinate and grow.
Okay, now Ken, Dustin was kind of wondering about, Jim's brought them out probiotic. That will help start the breakdown process of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Or just with the
Any
feeding.
good microbe you have through the feeding system, if you put a probiotic in an animal, you have good biology
Going out the back end.
heading there. Now, so that's going to help you. But you got to remember, your digestion process is anaerobic. This is aerobic. So a lot of those guys are going to switch off.
So then just stimulating it further once it comes out would make a big difference.
Well, to put the right biology in once it comes out, now we begin to handle it in a different environment. If we have guys who will feed the probiotic to their animals in their pens, their chickens or their hogs, and it gives a huge start on bioaugmenting the manure. Absolutely. But if you get manure that hasn't got that in it, you've got to start somewhere. So once we pile it up, we go into an aerobic process.
But doing both would be the ultimate.
Right.
Doing both processes
Always,
would be.
always,
Yeah.
because we get breakdown anaerobically the process of digestion, then you further it with the aerobes out here in the compost.
How are you applying that stuff to salad or like a pit? You can dump it and stir it up.
Exactly. What you do is you spray the sides of the pile, and you come back with a turner, and it turns it.
So do you have to have a turner in order to have the benefit of it?
You do.
Just put it on top and
No, because what happens is the top dries out the quickest, and heat coming out, and the sunlight will dry the top out, then your active biology goes on. So what we do is we spray right up and down these pile lines right here, then the turner flips it inside. And then they'll grow and spread from there.
Or like a grater or some type of a mechanism
Well,
to just read.
guys, if you're gonna do compost right, don't fart around with payloaders and buckets and crap like that. Because I will tell you, and I'll be very blunt about this, I've studied composting, and I've studied aerobic biology, and I almost quit fishing because I spent so much time doing this. So I'm one man Indian, but I'm one damn smart guy about biology. And the fact is this process here can be done wonderfully, articulately, immaculately. And there are darn few people who do it right and do it well. There is as many shortcuts making this into worse trash in the composting industry than there are guys selling pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides. Okay?
You have to stir it more than the initial time in order to keep it working.
Absolutely. There's a whole art to making this stuff. You know, you guys want to end up with Thunderbird compost, you want to end up with a Chardonnay Blanc fluid that costs $8,000 a bottle. You have this whole entire process. You have to watch pH. You have to watch moisture. You have to watch oxygen. You have to watch oxidation reduction, and you have to watch CO2 levels. There are parameters on all of them, and the biology will tell you exactly what's happening inside that pile every second of the day if you can watch all those parameters. You know exactly what's going on. You know the rate of breakdown. You know the heat, the transfer, the energy, the production. When you end up with a good product, that stuff is amazing. You can put a seed of any plant in there and it will germinate in a heartbeat. And it will grow straight in that compost.
Well, from day one to completion, how long would it take?
Your good compost is going to take you 3 to 4 months. People say they can make compost in 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
It's not.
Guys, I got beachfront property in Iowa this day. And it was on the Atlantic and Gulf Pacific. Okay? It's not reality. Okay? Biology doesn't work that way. And so, if you want to make great compost, get good equipment. Don't be fooled into thinking that you can do this with a shovel and a backhoe. It isn't going to work. Right? If you want to make quality stuff, you need to know your parameters, you need to know the right biology, because it's not there to start with. You've got to have food sources and you've got to have mineral content. And you can make some amazing stuff that's worth a lot of money. I buy compost that I use as a starter for $700 to as much as $1,000 a ton. And I am stuck with the real deal. Most places sell the compost for $20 if they can sell it. Why am I paying 5 or 10 times that?
Because you want the good stuff.
Because I want microorganisms. I want the diversity of biology. I want every species in there. Because what I'm doing is I'm not just composting a waste product. I am setting up my soil to have the broad spectrum of biology to do the next step. And I've told this to people over and over and over again that make compost. Guys, the greatest value in your compost has nothing to do with NPK. That will be gone very quickly. The greatest value of your compost is your biology complex, your biology populations of what it will do in the next step of soil amendments. And make no mistake, that is worth 100 times more than any NPK you'll ever get out of this pile of compost.
How does it compare to like the liquid form? How does the solid composted pile like that with other stuff in it compare to like your liquid manure for value?
Well, I would always take a dry compost over a liquid compost, because all I can work my liquid compost is with bacteria. I can't get fungi in my liquid compost. Okay? And here I can get bacteria, and I can get upwards of 500,000-600,000 species, not just population per million or per gram of soil. I'm talking species, individual species, hundreds of thousands of species of bacteria.
So then your diversity is a lot greater.
100,000 plus species of fungi, thousands of species of protozoa, hundreds of species of nematodes, beneficial nematodes. I can get, that's what I'm doing is I'm setting up my entire soil food web to be a completely functional system. I can't do that in a liquid system. Can't do it. Okay? So But you still have to deal with what you've got in the environment you can do it. But I will tell you, proper manures composted this way,
Worth its weight in gold.
my goodness, way more beneficial biologically to the next soil than an anaerobic process. But again, we do the very best anaerobically we can because that's the system we have. Okay? But I can take the same organisms that I put to do this, is I can take and put those into my soil after my anaerobic decomposition, my manure, my legumes, and my pits, and I get there the same way. We're going to talk about that this afternoon, is the aerobic biology in your soils. Okay?
Let's wrap her up here so we have lunch.
Yeah.
We got a few more minutes.
So here we go. This is what good old composting is. Lots of piles, lots of manure, really cool stuff. And guys, you don't need one of these babies that cost $500,000, but you need a good turn. All right, if you're going to get serious about getting good compost, don't try to lift it with buckets. You've got to aerate it, you've got to turn it, you've got to manage the weed seeds, you've got a lot of parameters to manage. We can teach you all that. But you'll make a finished product that is absolutely amazing. This stuff gets hot, 140, 150, 160 degrees, right? A little bit spicy underneath there, right? I'm hungry.
Okay, let's give Ken a hand. Now go out, go down the stairs to your left and go out and have lunch. We didn't put a lot of stuff in the packets because we laid like over here,